When Cicely needed her husband most, he chose another woman. Alone, pregnant, and heartbroken, she had to fight through betrayal, pain, and fear to protect her baby. But sometimes, losing the wrong person opens the door to the love you truly deserve. This story teaches us to never give up on ourselves. Please support our channel with one like and one share. Thanks for watching.
3 in the morning, pain ripped through her. She texted her husband, but a cold message came back. He was with someone else. Her world fell apart. Welcome to the family. May you find strength and peace that never fades. You are the heartbeat of love. Why the silence, though? A simple like or comment keeps this community alive. It takes 1 second to show you care. YouTube might hide us, but we shine together. We need 1,000 likes. If your heart is true, like this video. If your love is real, write I am with Mr. Peter. Waves of pain hit Cicely Carroll. She held her belly, hope twisting inside. She realized the world was crueler than she imagined. Rain slammed the window, matching her inner chaos. Every drop was a countdown to a new life. Samuel kissed her hours ago, but his mind was elsewhere. His phone buzzed, then he vanished. He blamed work and investors. She stopped asking questions because questions felt like doubt. She promised to trust now. That promise tasted like ash. A sharp contraction doubled her over. She gripped the yellow dresser she painted herself. The bright color felt like a cruel joke. She pictured Samuel here, both of them happy to welcome their daughter. The crib waited with white sheets and a mobile of stars. Her mother's rocking chair sat empty. She had stitched the name Hope onto cushions during his absences. Everything felt like a stage set for a play she no longer understood. Another wave of pain hit, and she fumbled for her phone with trembling fingers. She typed, her vision blurring. Each word was an act of faith about to be destroyed. Her hands shook as she hit send. She watched the delivery icon that used to bring her peace. She waited, breathing through the pain. She had attended every class alone while Samuel was away. She sat among happy couples, hiding the hurt that her husband was always somewhere else. Her phone stayed dark. Minutes felt like hours. She called, her heart hammering. It rang 3 times. Please, pick up, she thought. Tell me you are coming. Tell me I am just imagining this. Tell me I am wrong. The ringing stopped. Someone answered. Samuel? Cicely asked, Cicely's voice cracking. But the voice that answered was not his. He is not available, the woman said. It was Vanessa, a colleague Cicely had helped mentor. She had even trusted her with her own career struggles. That same woman had sent a gift for the baby. Where is Samuel? Cicely asked, struggling through another contraction. I am in labor. I need him. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Vanessa spoke, her words cutting deep. Samuel asked me to call. He is done, Cicely. We have been together for a long time. He is building a future with me. You should handle the baby alone. It is cleaner that way. He has moved on, and you need to do the same. Cicely could not process it. They were ugly, solid, and true. You are lying, Cicely whispered. Samuel wouldn't do this. We are married. Vanessa laughed. Is that what you thought? Samuel has been planning this for months. The house is in my name, Vanessa added. You were just a chapter he is closing. Have the baby alone. We already have. The line went dead. Cicely stood frozen, her daughter kicking into a world where her father vanished. Physical pain was nothing compared to the weight in her chest. She could not breathe. She felt foolish for ignoring those late nights and excuses. She remembered him smiling at his phone and coming home with a different scent. She had called herself paranoid. Now her water broke, soaking the floor she had cleaned just yesterday. She looked at the mess. She was terrified and alone. She scrolled through her contacts, skipping Samuel. She would never beg him for anything again. She found the one person who always answered, Jolene, her younger sister. They had fought, but Jolene was the only one who warned her about Samuel in the beginning. Jolene picked up, her voice alert. "Cece, what is wrong?" "The baby is coming," Cicely sobbed. "Samuel is gone. He is with someone else. I cannot do this alone." "You are not alone," Jolene promised. "I am 10 minutes away. Do not move. Just breathe." Cicely slid to the floor, clutching her phone like it was the only solid thing left. "Please hurry. I am scared," Cicely cried. "You are the strongest person I know," Jolene said, running to her car. "Tell me what happened."
Cicely tried to explain through her tears and pain. Jolene listened, making promises that everything would be okay, even if they both knew the truth. "I am in the car," Jolene said. "Stay on the line." Cicely listened to her sister, finding the strength to hold on.
Still, Vanessa's cold words haunted her. Samuel had planned this. Cicely was the last to know their marriage ended before the baby began. She made a silent promise.
Waters broke, contractions gripped her. Samuel Pollard would never see her cry. He would never see her weak. He left when she needed him most, and that was his mistake.
Hope kicked her ribs. When Jolene burst in, she found Cicely with her jaw set. "Let us have this baby,"
Cicely said, her voice steady.
"Let us show him what he is missing."
Jolene helped her up, grabbed the bag Cicely packed, and guided her into the rain toward Memorial Grace Hospital. The drive was a blur of traffic and pain.
Jolene talked about everything except Samuel. Cicely refused to cry. Not even when a contraction hit so hard she almost lost consciousness. Not when she finally said the truth out loud. Not even when nurses rushed her into the emergency entrance. Crying could wait.
Right now, Cicely had a daughter to deliver, with or without the man who broke his promise. She was on her own now. Someday, Samuel would regret what he threw away. Harsh delivery room lights turned everything into shadows. Cicely gripped the bed rails to push hope into the world.
Every contraction reminded her she was doing this alone. Jolene held her hand, whispering words Cicely barely heard. But the empty space beside the bed felt cold and impossible to ignore. The pain was all-consuming, but the emotional ache was worse, knowing she was bringing hope into a family that had shattered before the baby's first breath. "We need more hands here," the nurse said. Her voice carried real worry. "She is bleeding too much. Get someone from obstetrics." People rushed in, their urgency cutting through the pain. Something was wrong. Something beyond being abandoned. Her body was failing too. Apparently one tragedy was not enough. Cicely felt panic rising. She could not die, not when hope needed her. She was the only parent this child would ever have. Then a new voice cut through the chaos, calm and certain. "I have her." "Everyone breathe. Let me see what we are working with." Cicely saw a man in scrubs, moving with speed. He took control like a conductor. Their eyes met. He said, "I am going to help you deliver your daughter safely. I am going to help you deliver your daughter's strength." It felt like an anchor. "Can you tell me your name?" Cicely gasped. "Cicely Carroll, I need you to trust me," Peter said. "Your body is working hard, but we need to work together." She nodded. His direct gaze steadied her. He did not treat her like she was broken. He treated her like she was strong enough for the truth. "You are hemorrhaging," he said. "When I say push, you push with everything you have. We will get hope here safely. You need to be strong." "Understood," Cicely replied. Her voice did not shake. What followed was pain unlike anything she imagined. It carved away everything except the instinct to survive. Peter talked her through every contraction. "Push. Breathe. Push again. You are doing beautifully, Cicely. Almost there. I can see her head. She has dark hair like yours. One more. Give me a big push." Cicely bore down, screaming, feeling something tear but not caring. Hope needed to live. Then Hope arrived, screaming with healthy lungs. The most beautiful sound Cicely ever heard. Perfect and covered in blood. Peter placed the baby on Cicely's chest. Their eyes met again. You did it. She is here, and she is gorgeous. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and perfect lungs. Cicely looked at her tiny daughter, who fought her way into the world, and felt something crack open. Not breaking, but making room for a love that left no space for Samuel. "Hello, Hope," she whispered through tears. "Hello, my girl. I am your mama, and you are enough for me. You will never wonder if you are loved." The team worked around her, monitoring blood loss while speaking in hushed tones. Cicely barely heard them, focused only on Hope's face and tiny fingers. She memorized every detail of the moment Samuel chose to miss. "Miss Carroll," Peter said after a while. He had stepped back but remained nearby. "You lost a lot of blood, so stay here. You and Hope will be fine. You fought hard." Cicely thanked him, but the words felt small. "You saved us. You saved yourself," he replied. "I just helped." He smiled warmly. Kindness lived behind his eyes. "Rest now. I will check on you." He did not just check once. He visited every hour, finding excuses to see if she was stable, if Hope was feeding, or if Jolene needed coffee. The attention felt like too much for a stranger, but Cicely was too exhausted to wonder why. Jolene noticed. When Peter left after his third visit, she raised an eyebrow. "That doctor checks on you a lot. Like, a lot." "He probably does that for everyone." Cicely shifted, wincing at the soreness. "I hemorrhaged," she said. "I am high risk." "Sis, they do not check this much unless they are worried," Jolene said. Her voice softened. "I think he sees what I see. A woman who went through hell and is trying to act fine." "I am not fine," Cicely admitted, looking at her sleeping daughter. "I am so far from fine, but I have to be for her." "You do not have to be strong for anyone, baby sister. It is okay to fall apart." "If I fall apart, I will never put myself back together," Cicely said. They sat in silence. When Peter returned late that night, Cicely was awake despite the exhaustion. Hope slept in the bassinet. Cicely stared at the ceiling, mind racing. Peter spoke softly. "I keep hearing his voice, telling me he has been done with me for months. I was blind and foolish." Cicely looked at him, exhausted. "Why are you here? Your shift ended hours ago." Peter pulled his chair closer. It felt like crossing a line between doctor and someone else. "I know that look. Trying to hold it all together, but you are not sure how." He hesitated. "My wife died giving birth 3 years ago. Her son died too. I was on duty. I could not save them." The confession hung there, raw and unexpected. "I am so sorry," Cicely whispered, her own pain fading. "That is unimaginable." "It was the worst night of my life," Peter said. "It still is. I threw myself into work, kept everyone away, and felt cursed. I became a machine, going home to an empty apartment. Did anything change? No. I just got better at hiding it." He looked at her. "Until tonight, delivering your daughter, watching you through pain and betrayal, I saw your strength. We are both survivors. If you need someone who understands when the world falls apart, I am here." Cicely felt tears slide down her face. "I thought I would never trust anyone again. Samuel broke that part of me." "He broke your trust," Peter said, his voice firm. "Do not let him take that. You can be angry and fall apart. But do not let him convince you that you are broken. You are wounded. Wounds heal." They sat in silence. Peter asked nothing, just stayed while Cicely cried as dawn approached. Jolene arrived later with food, noticing everything but saying nothing. When Peter left, he squeezed Cicely's hand. "You are going to survive this. I know it does not feel like it now, but you will. Someday, this night will be the start of something better." Cicely felt something stir beneath her grief. Not attraction yet, but recognition. Finding someone who spoke the same language of loss, someone who understood healing, someone scarred but still kind. For the first time, Cicely felt she might survive. Maybe life after devastation was possible. Hope stirred, making hungry sounds. Cicely reached for her daughter, her hands steadying. Progress. Chapter 3. The Slow Return to Living. Cicely moved into her mother's narrow row house. Sleeping in her childhood room, she felt the familiar scent of lavender, a memory of when she believed the world was good. The space was cramped, nothing like her suburban life. But it was offered with love. Then, on Hope's 1-week birthday, Samuel's divorce papers arrived, destroying the tiny hope that he might come to his senses. Cicely was nursing when the doorbell rang. Jolene signed for the envelope with a scowl. "Do not open it yet," she warned. "Wait until you are strong." But Cicely was done waiting for Samuel. She was done being a victim. She opened the envelope while nursing. The terms felt like fresh poison. Samuel claimed everything they built over 7 years. The house was in Vanessa's name through refinancing Cicely knew nothing about. Her signature was forged. Joint accounts were drained months ago. He even demanded a DNA test for Hope, acting as if she were the unfaithful one. He planned this for months. Cicely's voice was hollow. Every smile, every touch while I was pregnant, he was already leaving. He was already with her. Dolores set her tea down hard, rattling the saucer. "That man will regret this." I have seen women lose husbands to tragedy and rebuild with dignity. But a man who abandons his pregnant wife, that is not a man. That is a coward. Cowards get what they deserve. "I just want him gone," Cicely said, looking at her sleeping baby. "I want to forget he ever existed. I want to pretend Hope came from nowhere, that she is just mine." "Honey, you cannot forget 7 years," Dolores said, taking her hand. "But you decide your future. Do not let him take your ability to love or hope for better." Forgetting was impossible with lawyers involved. Calls about assets and timelines dragged on. Jolene spent nights digging through old emails to prove Cicely's hard work. The legal battle was a form of torture. What Jolene found was worse than they imagined. "Sis, look at this," she said, her hands shaking. "Samuel did not just leave. He systematically erased you, like you were just a problem to solve." The evidence was damning. Emails showed him changing shared passwords one by one. He told colleagues you were having a mental health crisis. There was documentation of the fake refinancing. Signatures were forged. Money vanished into hidden accounts. But the worst was an email from 2 years ago. Samuel had a vasectomy reversal in secret, timing it with his affair, because Vanessa wanted children. Hope was not the planned blessing Cicely thought. She was an accident, an inconvenience Samuel decided to abandon. Cicely held the papers, stunned by how the man who once wrote her poetry became such a monster. "He never loved me, or maybe he did, and I just became an obstacle between him and what he wanted." She said it aloud, testing the words. She finally understood the truth. They tasted like ash and heartbreak. "Stop that right now." Dolores pulled the papers from Cicely and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Don't you dare think you weren't worthy of love. You were everything a good wife should be. Loyal, kind, and strong. You built him up from nothing. You sacrificed your own dreams for his. He threw it away because he is fundamentally broken. That is not your failure, baby. It is his." Cicely finally broke down, sobbing into her mother's shoulder while Jolene held little hope, and Dolores whispered the same comforts from her childhood. She cried for the marriage she believed in, the man she thought Samuel was, and the future that vanished when Vanessa spoke. When the tears finally stopped, Cicely felt hollow, but also lighter. It was as if the crying had drained some of the poison, finally making room for something else. Not happiness yet, but maybe a glimmer of hope. "I need to get out of this house," she said, suddenly needing fresh air. "I want to feel normal again." Jolene offered to watch Hope, while Dolores insisted Cicely take some money to treat herself to a nice lunch. Cicely found herself driving toward Memorial Grace Hospital. She told herself she just wanted to walk through their famous gardens and it had nothing to do with hoping to run into the doctor, who showed her such unexpected kindness. But she knew she was lying to herself. She needed to see Peter Baker again. Someone who understood pain without pitying her. She found him in the hospital cafeteria during his lunch break, reviewing charts with intense focus. He looked exhausted, with dark shadows under his eyes, likely filling his hours with work to avoid a lonely home. His exhaustion made him feel more human than the composed doctor she first met. Cicely almost turned back, then he looked up and his face transformed with a smile, so genuine it took her breath away. Cicely. He stood up quickly, almost knocking over his coffee in the process. How are you? How is Hope? Is everything okay? We are surviving, she said, feeling a bit foolish but unable to leave. I was nearby and thought I would walk through the gardens. Everyone says they are beautiful. They are, Peter said, gesturing to the chair across from him. They are even better with company. Have you eaten yet? She realized she was starving. They went through the line together, Cicely finally grabbing a real meal, instead of the crackers she had been living on. Peter quietly paid for both their trays, before she could even protest or feel embarrassed. They found a quiet table and talked about everything except the obvious. They argued over local sports, complained about the endless rain, and debated where to get the best cheese sticks. Their argument over local shops was so silly that they both started laughing with surprising ease. It felt shockingly normal. Cicely realized this was her first real conversation since Hope was born that did not involve lawyers, betrayal, or survival. She was just talking to a person about simple things, and it felt like medicine for wounds she did not know how to heal. Thank you, she said, cutting off his defense of a local shop. For what? For treating me like a person instead of a tragedy. Everyone looks at me with pity. I am so tired of being the abandoned wife and the cautionary tale. Peter set his sandwich down, locking eyes with her. I do not pity you, Cicely. I admire you. Most people would have cracked under this pressure. But you are still standing, still showing up for your daughter. That takes a kind of strength most never find. I do not feel admirable, she whispered. I feel foolish for missing the signs. Love makes us hopeful. Not foolish, he replied. There is a world of difference between those two things. Peter paused, choosing his words. After my wife Catherine died, I blamed myself for missing the end. Colleagues told me that terrible things happen without warning. Beating yourself up for not predicting the unpredictable is just self-torture. It serves no purpose. How did you stop? I did not. Not entirely. But I started therapy and got honest about my struggle instead of faking it. Slowly, I learned I could live with the loss without letting it consume me. He held her gaze. You are early in this journey, Cicely. It is okay not to be okay. Anger and confusion are just parts of the process. Cicely felt a weight lift from her chest. Can I ask something personal? Anything. Why tell me? About Catherine. You barely knew me. Peter was quiet, thoughtful. When I looked at you, I saw the same look I had in my own mirror for years. You were bracing yourself to survive the unbearable. I wanted you to know it is possible to make it through. You can survive total destruction and find joy again. I would like that, Cicely said, surprised by her own honesty. I want to believe this emptiness will pass. You are not broken, you are healing, he said. Broken things stay in pieces. Healing things grow stronger where they mended. Peter pulled out his phone. I would be honored if you called me for a reminder, or just to chat. They swapped numbers. It felt like crossing a line from doctor to patient, but the connection felt deeper. It was built on shared loss and the will to survive. Their bond had moved past medicine. When Cicely left, walking through the autumn gardens, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She might actually survive Samuel's betrayal. Maybe survival was just the start. And maybe there was a road ahead she could not quite see yet. Real happiness might be waiting, not just grief. She drove home to hear Hope crying. Cicely scooped her daughter up. Her hands were still, just a little. Small progress, but for today it was enough. Chapter 4. The Comfort of Being Seen. Samuel's life with Vanessa was not the fairy tale he had imagined. She was exciting as a secret full of sharp edges and forbidden passion, making him feel like he was starring in a movie. But as his partner, Vanessa was exhausting. She wanted expensive dinners he could not afford, while lawyers drained his accounts. She mocked his car and his home, constantly comparing him to her ex-boyfriend who had more money. She demanded constant attention and raged when he was tired from the divorce. The irony was bitter. He had destroyed his marriage for a woman who was making him miserable, replacing Cicely's steady support with nothing but sharp criticism. His parents drew a line when he brought Vanessa to an upscale dinner he could not afford. His mother saw Vanessa's smug grin, stood up and looked Samuel in the eye. "We are leaving," she said, her voice colder than he ever imagined. "I did not raise you to abandon a pregnant wife. I do not recognize the man you have become." His father's words cut deeper. "When you are ready to apologize to Cicely and meet your daughter properly, call us. Until then, we have nothing to say. You disgraced this family." They left without ordering. Samuel heard nothing from them, save for one brief text from his mother weeks later. "Your daughter was born healthy. Her name is Hope. She looks like Cicely. You missed it. I hope your gain was worth the cost." The rejection from his parents compounded the distance from clients who loved Cicely. They felt personally betrayed by how Samuel treated her. His reputation was crumbling, and Vanessa pushed him to move away, where nobody knew his history. But Samuel could not leave. His lawyer warned that moving during a divorce looked like fleeing. And Samuel still believed he could spin the narrative. He thought he could appear less like the villain. He was wrong. He drove past the house one night, telling himself he just wanted to see Hope. But as he sat in the dark, his chest tightened with regret. Cicely sat in a rocking chair, surrounded by her mother and sister. The three women were laughing at something, Jolene said, their faces bright with joy despite the cramped home. Cicely looked peaceful, even after everything Samuel had done. She looked beautiful, more radiant than Vanessa ever could be, with her calculated charm. Samuel drove away feeling hollow, unable to even explain to himself what he had hoped to accomplish by stalking them. Meanwhile, Cicely had no idea Samuel was watching her like a ghost. She was focused on the small miracle of Peter Baker becoming a part of her life. It started simply with Peter texting to check on Hope. Cicely responded with gratitude, asking about the developmental milestones she had read about. He sent articles that actually made sense, cutting through the internet noise. She sent him a picture of Hope peeping, her tiny hands thrown up in surrender. He replied with a heart emoji that felt intimate despite the simplicity. The text became daily. Good morning wishes, funny hospital stories, and honest talks about Peter's own struggle with loneliness outside the medical world. Then Peter invited Cicely to dinner, casual and low pressure. He insisted she bring Hope so she would feel safe. Cicely said yes before she could overthink it. His brownstone surprised her when she arrived with the baby and a fully packed diaper bag. She expected sterile and modern, but found warm, creaky wooden floors. There were shelves full of worn books and a kitchen that clearly saw regular use. He had even set up a portable crib. He thought of everything, from burp cloths to fresh wipes, looking genuinely delighted when Cicely arrived. "I was not sure what you would like, so I made 3 options," he said, gesturing to pasta, roasted chicken, and a stir-fry. I tend to overthink when I am nervous. You are nervous? Cicely asked as she settled Hope into the crib. Why? Because you are here, and I want you to have a nice evening. I am terrified I will say something wrong, or you will realize I am boring. Peter's honesty was disarming. I have not had anyone over who mattered in a long time. You matter, Cicely said softly. Peter said it with such certainty she felt a shift in her chest. More than you realize. They ate by candlelight, talking about real things. Peter admitted. He became a doctor to please his father and spent years chasing impossible expectations. He said Catherine's death made him realize life was too short to perform for others. He had been on autopilot ever since, just going through the motions. Cicely admitted. She married Samuel because he made her feel special after a lifetime of feeling invisible. As the girl from the wrong side of town, she sacrificed her own ambitions, thinking his dreams were more important than her own. She had wanted to be a writer before Samuel told her it was not practical. What kind of stories did you want to write? Peter asked, with interest. Romance, she admitted, laughing at herself. Nothing fancy, just stories that made people feel good. It sounds silly now, she said. It does not sound silly at all, Peter replied earnestly. The world needs stories about hope and love. What would you write now? After everything, I would write about women who survive betrayal and find themselves again. About second chances and learning to trust after everything was shattered. Cicely was surprised by her own passion. I would write stories where the heroine saves herself. You should write them, Peter said. The air between them shifted, charged with new possibility. Cicely felt it and was terrified, because she had been so wrong about Samuel she could not trust her judgment. I should go, she said, standing abruptly. Hope will need to feed soon. You are not imposing. You could never impose, Peter said, moving closer. Cicely, I need to tell you something without pressure. Her heart hammered against her ribs. I am falling in love with you, he said, stating it like an undeniable fact. I know it is too soon, and I know you are still healing. I know I am probably the last complication you need. But pretending I do not feel this way would be dishonest. I promised myself I would never hide from the truth again. Life is too short to hide your true feelings. Cicely stared at him, stunned by his honesty. You do not have to say anything, Peter said softly. I just needed you to know where I stand. I will respect whatever you decide, but I hope you choose to stay. Cicely did not speak. She leaned in and kissed him, pouring months of grief and hope into that moment. Peter responded with such care that tears filled her eyes. Breathing hard, Cicely whispered, I am terrified. I fear being wrong again. Trusting the wrong person might destroy me. Me too, Peter said. He kissed her forehead, then her cheeks with gentle kindness. Maybe we can be afraid together. Fear hurts less when you share it with someone who understands. They stopped there for the night. Baby Hope started crying, breaking the spell. Reality returned with diapers and feeding schedules. Yet something had shifted. A door to the future had opened. Later, Peter walked Cicely to her car. He carried the car seat, checking the straps with real care. Cicely turned to him before getting in. This feels too good to be true. Like I will wake up and realize you are just another lie. I am not a lie, Peter said. He touched her face, tracing her cheekbone. I am a man who lost everything. I thought I would never feel alive again. Then you walked into that delivery room, so fierce and broken. Something inside me finally woke up. You are not too damaged for this. You are brave, strong, and perfect. She drove home with those words, warming her soul. Hope slept in the back. For the first time since that terrible call, Cicely imagined a future beyond just surviving, maybe even real joy. A second chance at happiness Samuel had nearly ruined. Chapter 5. Learning to Trust Again. It felt like learning to breathe underwater. It was unnatural and scary, but possible if you kept your head and refused to panic. Peter became a steady presence. He was reliable, which felt new compared to Samuel. He would show up with dinner when she had been dealing with lawyers all day. He fed the whole family, never asking for anything in return. He sent texts that made her laugh. He held hope while Cicely showered, treating her daughter with a kindness that made her heart ache. Her sister Jolene watched it all, protective and always on guard. "He is good to you," Jolene said while folding laundry. "Honestly, almost too good. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Do you think he is another Samuel?" Cicely did not even have to answer. "I know you are hurt and you are my sister, so you have to be paranoid. It is your job." Jolene softened, setting down a tiny outfit. "But he does not trigger my alarms. He seems like a decent man." "That scares me, because now you have something real to lose." "That terrifies me too," Cicely admitted. "With Samuel, I ignored the signs, the late nights, the distance. But with Peter, everything feels perfect, and I do not trust my judgment anymore. What if I am missing red flags? What if I am just desperate?" "Go slow," Jolene said, squeezing her hand. "Let him prove himself with actions. There is no rush. You are allowed to be cautious. Just do not let fear keep you from something good." But slowing down felt impossible. Being with Peter made Cicely feel more alive than she had in years. They talked for hours about everything. His wealthy childhood, where success mattered more than love, versus her neighborhood where people shared every struggle. They bonded over old movies, bad jokes, and the smell of rain. Peter shared more about Catherine. He spoke of their quick marriage and how he loved her. He admitted he lived with a secret fear of losing her, a fear that became a trap he could not escape. "I blamed myself for months," he told her during a late-night call. Neither could sleep, their voices soft in the dark. "I was in the hospital when she died. I was a doctor trained to save lives. But I could not save my own wife. The guilt nearly destroyed me." "How did you survive it?" Cicely asked, wanting to understand his pain. "Therapy," he said. "Lots of therapy and time." It sounds like simple advice, but it is true. "I finally accepted that I am human, not God. Meeting you is part of my healing," he added, tenderly. "Seeing your strength makes me believe we can survive the unsurvivable." "I do not feel strong," Cicely whispered. "I feel like I am barely holding it together." "That is what strength looks like, Cicely. It is not never falling apart, but getting back up every time you do." These talks built trust between them, brick by brick, creating a foundation even her fear could not break. Still, physical intimacy was a bridge Cicely was not sure she could cross. The thought of being vulnerable, letting someone see her body changed by pregnancy, and her heart scarred by betrayal, terrified her. It scared her until the night she decided to be brave. Peter invited her to dinner. He told her to come after Hope was asleep so she could stay if she wanted. The message was clear. Cicely drove to his place, hands tight on the wheel, fighting waves of panic. Peter opened the door in a soft sweater, looking approachable. His vulnerability calmed her nerves. He had cooked pasta from scratch, and the place smelled like garlic. They ate by candlelight as rain drummed against the windows. The conversation flowed. They talked about Hope, his work, and her writing. After dinner, they washed dishes in a comfortable silence. Peter turned to her, his expression honest. "I do not have expectations for tonight. I want you to know that first. I invited you here for uninterrupted time. But if you are not ready for anything beyond dinner, that is fine. More than fine. Your comfort and your consent matter more to me than my own desires." Cicely set down the dish and looked at him. She really looked at this man who was kind and patient. He saw her as a person, not an object. He made her feel safe. "I am terrified," she said honestly. "But I think I am ready to be terrified with you. I am ready to be brave." Peter took her hands and led her to his bedroom. They stood in the soft light, unsure how to begin. "We can stop anytime," he promised. "Just say the word. No questions, no hurt secret." She knew. He meant it. That was the difference. Peter saw her consent as a gift, not a right. Their first time was tender and beautiful. Peter asked permission before every touch, following her lead. When Cicely's hands shook, he held them still and kissed her trembling fingers. She cried when he entered her, overwhelmed by emotion. He froze, worried, and asked if they should stop. She pulled him closer, needing the connection. She told him not to stop, that she had forgotten what it felt like to be treated as if she were precious. "You matter more than anything," Peter whispered like a prayer, kissing her throat. They made love slowly, learning each other's rhythms. They laughed when elbows bumped and gasped when things felt right. It was not a romance novel, but it was real, honest, and deeply healing. They were two broken people choosing connection, daring to hope again, even though they knew how much hope can hurt. Afterward, they lay together while she listened to his heartbeat. Peter thanked her for trusting him. He knew how hard this was after everything she had survived. "It was hard," Cicely whispered, "but easier than she expected." She felt safe, like she could finally be herself, messy and scared, and he would still see something worth loving. Peter looked at her and said he saw everything worth loving. He praised her kindness, her strength, and her laugh. Peter held her close, promising he was there to stay. They talked until dawn, dreaming of a future that finally felt real. Peter wanted to be part of her life for good. Cicely felt a spark to write again, finally shedding the version of herself that Samuel had forced into hiding. "You are not small," Peter said, kissing her forehead. "You are vast, never forget that." When she left at dawn, he walked her to the car, clearly hating to let go. He made her promise to text when she arrived. Cicely drove through the quiet streets, her body still humming. She felt lighter and more hopeful than she had in years. She had taken a risk and found something solid. Soon, the divorce settlement arrived with a shock. Jolina's proof of Samuel's fraud was undeniable. Cicely won true financial independence. Samuel had to pay generous support for hope. The house transferred to Vanessa was returned to the assets and sold, with the money split down the middle. It was justice. Jolene took her out for a fancy dinner to celebrate. The sisters laughed and cried over glasses of wine that tasted like pure victory. Jolene toasted to her survival. "We did it," Cicely insisted, clinking her glass. She never could have made it without them. When Jolene asked about Peter, Cicely blushed like a teenager with her first crush. Peter was amazing, but she felt guilty for being happy. Jolene reminded her that the marriage died when Samuel chose cruelty. She was allowed to love again. Still, meeting Peter's family felt like a hurdle. He warned her that Sunday dinner was a beloved tradition and a bit of an interrogation. "They will love you," Peter promised on the drive. Hope was asleep in the back. He told her she could signal him if things got too intense and they would leave. The house was elegant, filled with old photos and books. It had the quiet grace of a family that had been successful for generations. His mother, Eleanor, opened the door and pulled Cicely into a warm hug. She joked that Peter had not stopped talking about her. Eleanor adored Hope, holding her with ease. Peter's father, Thomas, was more reserved but kind. He shook her hand with a sharp, steady gaze, evaluating her character. Dinner started tense. Cicely worried about every word. Then Eleanor asked about her writing, and they dove into a passionate debate about romance novels. Eleanor even teased Thomas for crying during a movie last month. Thomas protested, but he could not hide a smile. When the sisters arrived, the house filled with laughter and the sound of kids. Cicely watched Peter hold Hope while helping his nephew with math. Her chest tightened. This was what a family should feel like: warm, accepting, and truly glad she was there. "You belong here," they seemed to say. After dinner, Thomas asked her to his study. Her heart hammered. Was he going to question if she was good enough? Instead, he poured them both a drink and sat down. He explained that Peter had been going through the motions since his wife died, isolated and lost in work. He admitted he was skeptical at first, afraid Peter was just filling a void. Cicely nodded, hands tight around her glass, admitting she understood the concern. "I worry about that too," she said, "but tonight, seeing him laugh again, I get it. You didn't just fill a void. Hey, you showed him that life is worth the risk. He did the same for me." Cicely teared up. "He proved that betrayal does not define my ability to love. Life does not wait for perfect timing." Thomas set his glass down. "If you both choose this with open eyes, you have my support."
Welcome to the family. She was overwhelmed by such kindness. Later, Peter drove them toward his place. Cicely did not hesitate. She needed that connection. Inside, they came together with a raw urgency. Peter backed her against the door, kissing her deep.
His hands moved over her with new confidence. "I love you," he said. No hesitation. "I love you so much it scares me, because I know how it feels to lose everything. I love you too." She pulled his shirt off, certain this man was hers. "Take me to bed," she whispered. "Make me forget everything but us." They were less tentative now, and far more passionate. Cicely was bold, trying things she never did with Samuel. She laughed when they fumbled and gasped when things got intense. "Tell me what you want," Peter whispered, his voice rough. "I want to give you everything." Cicely arched against him, pulling him close. "I just want you. Exactly like this." They climbed to the edge together. His name was a prayer as the pleasure washed over her. He followed moments later, trembling as he rested against her. Afterward, tangled in the sheets, Peter traced patterns on her shoulder. "I want you to move in," he said. "You and Hope, I want to wake up to you and come home to you. I want to be a father to Hope, bedtimes, scraped knees, the first day of school." Cicely gasped. "That is a huge step. If it is too soon, I understand, but I am certain about us." "No pressure, just know the offer stands." She thought about the cramped room at her mother's house. Then she looked at Peter, who already felt like home. "Yes," she said before she even realized it. "I want to move in. I want to build a life together. I want Hope to know you as her father." Peter's smile could have lit up the city. "We are really doing this," he said, his voice full of wonder. "Despite our wounds, we are choosing each other, because we know what it means to lose everything," Cicely said. "We are brave enough to cherish what we are building. We never take love for granted." They made love once more, slow and sweet, promising a future that finally felt solid. When they fell asleep with Hope nearby, they felt like they were finally home after years of being lost. Meanwhile, Samuel's world had collapsed. His house was sold, his money seized for taxes. Vanessa left him for his friend, a betrayal that would have been funny if he were not so crushed. His parents stopped calling. His friends vanished, fearing his scandal. He lived in a cheap studio, working a soul-crushing job just to pay rent. Everything he spent 15 years building was gone, destroyed by his own choices. But what kept him up at night was knowing Cicely had moved on. She was happy, and Hope called another man father. Photos showed Cicely glowing, happier than she ever was with him. He had thrown away his marriage and his career for a 6-month affair. He realized she had just used him. The regret was suffocating. Samuel started driving past her old house, then tracked her down to her new neighborhood. He sat in his car for hours, watching her life through the windows like a movie. He saw her laughing with a man who held Hope with such love. They cooked together, danced, and put the baby to bed with a routine that showed real partnership. Watching them on the couch, so intimate, made his stomach turn. Jealousy was like acid. He finally buzzed their door. His heart pounded, hoping she might remember the past. But Peter opened the door. Samuel felt instant hate for the man who replaced him. Peter looked at him with calm authority. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice polite but cold. "I am Samuel Pollard. I am here to see my daughter," Samuel said, trying to sound confident but sounding desperate. "You are the parent who abandoned her and hasn't called in months," Peter said, his voice like steel. "You have no rights here. You are not welcome." "I have rights. She is my blood." "No." Cicely appeared behind him, looking strong and completely out of reach. "You gave up your rights when you chose cruelty over your own family," she said. "Please," Samuel begged, his voice cracking. "I made mistakes. I get it now. I am trying to make things right. I want to be in Hope's life. I want to fix this." Cicely stayed cold and steady. "There is no fixing this. You did not just leave, Samuel. You planned your exit for years. You erased me from my life on purpose. You made me doubt my sanity. You abandoned your daughter before she was born. Those were choices that show exactly who you are. I have changed and lost everything. Does that count? I do not care." Her indifference stung more than any scream. "I do not care if you have changed or suffered. That is not my concern. I am busy protecting my daughter from people like you, and you are at the top of that list." Peter put a hand on her shoulder. "You need to leave. If you show up here again, we will file for a restraining order. You will not get within 100 yards of this family. Who are you to tell me anything?" Samuel finally snapped. "You have known her for months. You do not get to play father. I am the man who held her hand through the birth you missed." Peter remained calm. "I am the man who has been there for every feeding and every milestone you chose to ignore. I am the man she trusts with her heart and her child. Now, goodbye, Samuel." The door shut in his face. He stood on the porch, crushed. He heard voices inside. Cicely was crying, but not because of him. Peter was comforting her. Hope was giggling nearby. It was the sound of a family he had destroyed. Inside, Peter held her while she shook. "I am sorry." Peter kissed her hair, his voice rough with anger. "I am sorry he showed up and ruined your peace." "Do not be sorry," she said. "I needed that. I needed to see him and feel nothing but relief." She touched Peter's face. "I needed him to see what he threw away." They held each other in the entryway. Then Hope called out from her crib. They went to her together. Peter picked her up while Cicely stroked her hair. "Dada." Hope patted his face, and his eyes welled up. "That is right, sweetheart. I am your Dada, and I am never leaving you, I promise." Later, after Hope slept, Peter and Cicely found comfort in each other. Their love was fierce and real. They needed to prove it was unshakable. "You are mine," Peter whispered against her skin. "Say it. I need to hear it." "I am yours," she gasped. "Only yours, forever." They climbed toward a peak, hearts racing as they finally found peace. "Marry me," Peter said suddenly. "I do not want to wait. I want you to be my wife. I want to legally be Hope's father. I want the world to know you are mine." Joy exploded in her chest. "Yes, I will marry you." They sealed the promise with kisses and plans for a bright future together. Miles away, Samuel sat in his dark apartment, staring at old photos. He finally understood the cost of his choices. He traded everything real for something temporary. Now he had nothing but regret that tasted like poison. Chapter 8. The Path to Happiness. The proposal was not a movie scene. No flash mobs or cameras. Just them in the apartment after Hope fell asleep. Peter took her hand and said he wanted to spend his life loving her and their daughter. He gave her a family heirloom ring. His mother had told him to use it only when he was truly certain. "I am certain," Peter said, sliding it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I have never been more sure of anything." They called their families, bursting with joy. Elana cried on the phone. saying she had prayed for this. Dolores arrived 20 minutes later with champagne and Jolene. Everyone laughed and cried. The celebration was small, intimate, and perfect. It was the kind of joy you only find against the odds. But joy always comes with complications. A letter arrived from the hospital ethics board. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint. They claimed Peter violated professional boundaries by dating a patient. Peter told Cicely it was routine. He had documented everything perfectly. Their relationship started long after she left his care. Still, the investigation made him stressed, withdrawn, and short-tempered. He snapped over little things like dishes, then retreated into silence. It reminded her of Samuel. "Talk to me," she said, one evening, after he had been quiet for hours. "Tell me what is wrong." "I am terrified of losing my medical license," Peter admitted, his voice raw. "I spent my life building this career. One complaint could destroy everything I have worked for. Without medicine, I do not know who I am." "You are the man I love," Cicely said, taking his face in her hands. "You are a father in every way that counts. Your career does not define your worth. You do. Your kindness and integrity define you. What if being with me costs you everything? What if you are better off without me?" "Stop that right now," she said, kissing him. "I am not better off without you. I am better with you, complications and all. We will get through this together." They started couples counseling to learn how to handle the stress without shutting down. The therapist helped Peter see his fears. He felt like he had failed his first family by not saving Catherine, and he feared failing Cicely now. "You are not failing," she said gently. "You are human. That is not failure. That is life. What matters is showing up and choosing each other." The ethics hearing arrived on a gray, somber afternoon. Peter presented his case with complete clarity. He only knew Cicely after she was discharged. He kept a journal of their first coffee and dinners to prove their relationship was entirely ethical and above board. The board deliberated for hours while they waited, shaking. The verdict? No violation.
Still, they warned Peter to maintain clear professional boundaries with patients and their families moving forward. Pure relief. Peter pulled Cicely into his arms in the hallway, holding her tight. "I thought I would lose everything," he whispered. "I feared loving you would cost me my entire identity."
But they survived. Cicely looked at him with fierce love. "We choose each other every day, through the easy and the hard." That night, after family celebrations, they appreciated their safety together. Their time together was slow, tender, and devoted. Peter worshipped every inch of her. When he finally entered her, the emotional intensity brought tears to her eyes. "I love you so much." He moved with agonizing slowness. "I love your strength, your kindness, and the way you laugh at my jokes. I love how you cherish hope with your whole heart. I love it all, every part of you." "Show me," she whispered, pulling him closer. He did. Afterward, they lay tangled in the dark, feeling like they had passed a crucial test and come out stronger. "Let us set a date," Cicely said. "I want to be your wife officially." "Spring," Peter suggested Trey's shoulder, "in the hospital garden, where we first really started to connect." "Perfect." They planned a small, intimate ceremony with just family and close friends. No showy production. Eleanor helped with flowers and catering. Everything felt right and focused on their genuine bond. Dolores handled the dress. Jolene managed the logistics with sharp precision. Meanwhile, Peter started formal adoption for Hope. Samuel, broken and defeated, finally signed the papers when they arrived by mail. His lawyer warned him that fighting was expensive and futile. He had abandoned his rights when he left Cicely in labor. Giving hope to the man who actually stayed was his only move. Samuel signed with a heavy pen. Each stroke admitted he had destroyed the most important thing in his life. No redemption here. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and the promise of new beginnings. Hope's adoption was finalized on a beautiful morning. The universe felt like it was celebrating their official family. Peter cried in the courthouse, holding his daughter and thanking Cicely for her trust. They framed the certificate and hung it near photos of their blended family. Cicely glowing with happiness, Peter looking at her with wonder, and Hope grinning. They were loved by everyone around them. The final weeks were joyful chaos. Cicely wrote her vows at night, trying to capture how Peter brought safety, passion, and growth into her life. It was a love that defied simple words. Peter struggled with his vows too. He wanted to show how she saved him from half-living. She reminded him that love was worth the risk and that second chances were very real. They chose the hospital garden for an evening ceremony. It was the same spot where the relationship shifted from doctor and mother to something meaningful. The irony was not lost on them. Tradition kept them apart the night before. Peter stayed at his parents' house. Cicely stayed with Hope, surrounded by Dolores and Jolene, who turned the night into a fun classic slumber party. "Are you nervous?" Jolene asked. "Terrified," Cicely admitted. "Not about Peter, but about whether I deserve this happiness. Whether the universe will let me keep it." "Stop that right now," her sister replied. Jolene grabbed her hands. "You deserve every bit of this. You survived betrayal that would have broken others. You rebuilt your life from nothing and raised Hope alone until Peter stepped up. You chose bravery over hiding. You deserve this." "I just keep waiting for the other shoe to drop," Cicely said. Jolene nodded. "Life is brutal, but you too have the tools to survive it." This is different from Samuel. Peter shows up. He stays when things get hard. He chooses you with actions, not just words. "Marry this good man and let yourself be happy, Cicely." Cicely nodded through tears. Across town, Peter had a similar talk with his father. "Catherine would have loved Cicely deeply," Thomas said quietly. "It was the first time he mentioned her. She would want you to find someone who makes you smile," he added. "I feel guilty," Peter admitted, "like I am betraying Catherine by being this happy. Is that wrong?" "Love is not finite, son. Loving Cicely does not erase what you felt for Catherine. Your heart is big enough for both. Catherine is gone, but you are still here. You deserve to live. She would have wanted that for you." Peter spoke softly, his voice thick with emotion. "I really needed your blessing." The wedding morning was crisp and beautiful. Warm enough for an outdoor ceremony, yet perfectly comfortable. Cicely woke early to the sound of Hope babbling. She fed her daughter as the sunrise washed their room in shades of gold, and pink it felt like a sign. By the afternoon, the apartment was a hive of activity that somehow stayed organized. Dolores steamed the wedding gown with care. Jolene did Cicely's makeup with an artist's touch. Eleanor arrived with breathtaking flowers. Baby Hope was passed between two grandmothers who had become best friends. When Cicely stepped into her elegant ivory gown, the room went quiet. She looked beautiful and effortless. "Oh, honey," Dolores whispered, pressing a hand to her mouth. "You look like an absolute angel." "Peter is going to lose his mind when he sees you," Jolene added, grinning through her own tears. "This is perfect. You are perfect." Hope, wearing a tiny white dress with fresh flowers in her curls, clapped and cheered. "Mama pretty." Everyone laughed and cried at once. They arrived at the hospital gardens just as the sun began to dip, lighting everything in that magical golden hour glow that photographers love. The guests sat in a small semicircle around an arbor filled with roses and wisteria. The guest list was tiny: Peter's family, Dolores, Jolene, a few co-workers, and some of Cicely's cousins who supported her after the divorce. Peter stood by the arbor in a dark suit, looking handsome and open, with his brother nearby. When he saw Cicely walking toward him, carrying Hope refusing to be walked down the aisle by anyone else, choosing instead to carry her daughter into their new life. His face lit up with such pure love that the crowd gasped. Cicely reached him and handed Hope to Eleanor, who sat in the front row. Then Cicely took Peter's hands. She looked at the man who helped her rebuild after Samuel and showed her what real love was. Their friend, a hospital chaplain, began with beautiful words about second chances and choosing to love despite the risks. Then came the vows. Peter started with a steady voice. "Cicely, when we met, I was barely living. I spent 3 years just going through the motions. Then you showed up in your darkest moment, bleeding and abandoned, but still so fierce. Your strength and your refusal to let betrayal break you reminded me why life matters. You did not save me, but you reminded me I could save myself. You gave me permission to hope again, to believe that joy and pain can coexist. I promise to honor your strength every single day. I promise to show up for you and hope without fail. I promise to cherish you and love you with everything I have for the rest of our lives. You are my second chance, and I will spend my life earning that gift." Cicely was already crying. Her voice trembled, but she stayed strong. "Peter, you met me when I was shattered, and you never acted like I needed fixing. You saw my wounds and my strength, and you loved both. You showed me that real love is not control, but a true partnership where we choose each other every day. You have loved my daughter like she was your own from the start. Watching you become her father has been my greatest joy. I promise to trust you with my heart, even when I am scared. I promise to be brave enough to let you see all of me, the broken parts and the beautiful ones. I promise to choose you, to build our life, and to love you for as long as I live. You gave me back my belief in happy endings. Let us write our own for the rest of our lives." The chaplain pronounced them married, and Peter kissed Cicely like a man who had finally reclaimed everything he once thought was lost. The small group cheered. Hope clapped along, not quite sure why. Everyone was laughing and crying, celebrating two people who had survived their worst nightmares to find each other. The reception in a private hospital room was perfect, filled with great food, music, and toasts that touched everyone's heart. Thomas gave a moving speech about seeing his son come back to life. Dolores spoke of her daughter as incredible resilience. Jolene roasted them both while crying, keeping the room in stitches. Peter and Cicely shared their first dance to a song about finding home in another person. Halfway through, Peter took Hope from Eleanor's arms and danced with his new wife and daughter. They swayed together while their families watched, filled with nothing but love. As the night ended and guests left with warm hugs, Peter pulled Cicely close and whispered with raw desire, "Ready to start forever, Mrs. Baker? I have been ready since the night you delivered Hope and looked at me like I was strong." Cicely kissed him, tasting champagne and promises. "Let us go home." They left early, leaving Eleanor and Dolores with Hope, so they could have their wedding night alone. Peter carried Cicely over their threshold, and once the door closed, they were finally alone. Their love was celebratory and tender, full of the passion of two people who had fought through hell to be together. It was everything a wedding night should be. They took their time exploring each other, like it was both the first time and the 1,000th. They whispered promises between kisses that tasted like champagne and forever. "I love you more than I thought possible," Peter said over and over as they moved together in perfect harmony. "I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you too. With everything I am." Cicely breathed as the pleasure built. "Forever. I love you forever." They reached the peak together, calling out each other's names, and eventually lay tangled in the sheets, feeling completely at peace. They both felt like they had survived every struggle just to reach this perfect moment. "We did it," Cicely whispered, tracing patterns on his chest. "We made it through the worst and came out whole." "We did more than just survive." Peter kissed her head. "We built something beautiful from the ruins. This is just the start of our story." The honeymoon in the Caribbean was exactly what they needed. 7 days of sun, turquoise water, sleeping in and completely disconnecting from the world. They video called Hope every day. They missed her, but they knew they needed this time to bond as a married couple. They returned home to an apartment that finally felt like theirs. Hope seemed to have grown so much in just 1 week. Maybe it was just their perspective that had shifted, making life feel so much more precious. Everything settled into a rhythm that felt perfect. Peter returned to the hospital with new energy, excited to come home to Cicely and Hope each evening. Cicely began writing again, using Hope's nap times to work on stories about survivors and second chances. Her first manuscript was honest and raw, and Peter encouraged her to send it to agents. Dolores and Eleanor became the best of friends, joining book clubs and spoiling Hope every chance they got. Jolene started dating a kind lawyer. He was steady and made her laugh. Months turned into years. Hope grew from a toddler to a talkative child, calling Peter Dada with total certainty. They bought a house with a backyard for her to play in. They painted her room together, already dreaming of more children. Cicely sold her book to a small publisher. Holding that finished copy, she wept, feeling like she had finally reclaimed herself. Samuel had once demanded she give up her writing, but now she was thriving. Peter threw a huge launch party to celebrate the woman she had fought to become. They rarely thought about Samuel. He had become just a sad cautionary tale. Cicely heard rumors through friends that he moved far away. He had lost everything and was struggling to rebuild a life that looked nothing like his past. Cicely felt only relief that he was nowhere near Hope. One evening, years after their wedding, she and Peter watched their daughter chasing fireflies in the dusk. Cicely was pregnant again. Peter asked quietly, "Do you ever wonder where we would be if Samuel had not destroyed your first marriage?" "Sometimes," Cicely leaned into him. "But honestly, I am grateful he did. It led me straight to you. Not grateful for the pain, just the outcome. I wonder if Catherine would approve of us." Peter rested his hand on her bump. "I choose to believe she would be happy you are not mourning alone." "I think Samuel is the one spending his life mourning what he threw away," Cicely said softly. "I hope he finds some peace, but that is not my problem anymore. My focus is our family." Hope ran over to them, laughing, with grass stains all over her knees. Peter kissed her forehead and held her close. Cicely watched them both with deep contentment. Later that night, after tucking Hope into bed, Peter and Cicely shared the quiet, easy intimacy of two people who truly knew each other. No rushing, just steady love. Cicely whispered, "I love our life. The simple mornings, the hard days, and all the quiet beauty in between." Peter pulled her closer. "I love you and I love our baby. We are building this future, brick by brick." They fell asleep tangled together, having survived their worst nightmares. Meanwhile, far away, Samuel sat alone in a tiny apartment, staring at photos of the life he ruined. He thought about her laugh and their first ultrasound. He had thrown it all away for something temporary. Now it was far too late. He finally understood he had everything worth having, but he was too blind to see it until it was gone. He broke her trust so cruelly that there was no coming back, no forgiveness for him. His regret was total, but it meant nothing to them. Their joy was untouchable. Back in Philadelphia, in a house full of love, Cicely Baker drifted off in her husband's arms. Their daughter was safe, and Cicely was finally free from the man who tried to break her. She survived. She thrived, finding her happy ending against all odds. That was the greatest victory. Living so fully that the person who tried to destroy you becomes irrelevant. He was just a footnote in a story that was always meant to be beautiful.